This is Tweet Street Satirical Saltire, broadcasting to you for unoccupied Scotland. Amplifying women's voices and saying women won't waste. This is Tweet Street Satirical Saltire, broadcasting to you for unoccupied Scotland. Amplifying women's voices and saying women won't waste.
It's gone to Rome, it's gone to Rome, it's gone to the trophies, gone to Rome, it's gone to, oh, just nice timing. How you doing, guys and girls? Hi, welcome all to Tweet Street Occupied Scotland, or Tweet Street Scotland Occupied. I'm Cinnamon Bridges, aka Peter. With us this evening, as usual, my co-host is JB Whitesnake. All right, John, how you doing, mate?
Not bad, pal. How you keeping? Okay?
I'm not bad, mate. I just made it back in time there. I've been celebrating for a week. It's been absolutely great.
For the term white man's burden, it was the supposed duty of the whites to bring culture and civilization to the non-whites. That's the white man's burden. That's how they explained colonialism. They were educating and civilizing the heathens. The British were the masters of this. British apologists still believe that India would not have had an education system, a civil service, a sense of social propriety and etiquette had the British not lorded over it. But over the weekend, these champions of civilization showed their barbaric side. They ran riot, hurled racial abuse, indulged in violence, and contributed to what's being called a super spreader event. Our story begins with the Euro Cup final. England lost twice, once on the football pitch and again outside the stadium. Their fans turned into booze-fueled savages. They attacked Italian supporters and racially abused their own players. Why? Because of hurt pride. Because their team lost and they couldn't accept it. English fans, by the way, have always been this way. They're not disappointed when England loses. They're enraged. It is the byproduct of centuries of entitlement. Not surprising for a country that calls itself Great Britain. Doesn't exactly scream humility or graciousness. The true face of Britain was laid bare at Wembley. Things got rowdy even before kickoff. Just look at these so-called fans. They did not get tickets to the final. But instead of staying home and watching the match on TV, they decided to invade the stadium. They broke through barriers and jumped fences. It was less of a celebration, more of a riot, and it set the tone for the rest of the night. The English team had an excellent tournament. They played some good football to reach the finals, but Sunday was not their day. They lost 3-2 on penalties. Instead of accepting this result, the fans lashed out. They were violent and racist. These pictures should give you an idea. The English fans threw punches at Italian supporters. They flung them to the ground and kicked them. Even the Italian flag was stomped on.
With us this evening, John, is we've got a cracking guest this evening, none other than Denise Finlay. Hi, Denise, how are you doing?
Hi, fine, thanks.
Good, good. I'm glad that you're doing well. We'll try and keep the usual format that we that we have, Denise, in case you've not had enough free time to catch up with all the offerings that we do here. The format is John usually asking of our questions. I try and keep the 77th Brigade off because they're always trying to hack into us. I can't manage it for the full time that we're doing the podcast, so that's kind of where we're coming from. So I'll pass it on to John to fire in with the questions while I try and keep them at bay. When you go, John.
Hi, Denise. How you doing?
Great.
Good, good. Give us a brief synopsis about yourself and your political standing at the moment.
All right, okay. So like I've always really supported independence, but like a lot of people, I was quite active in the 90s, but more for Labour because, you know, I was eager to get rid of the Tories. And then I realised that if you get rid of the Tories, even if you count Tony Blair as Labour, but it doesn't save you forever. The Tories come back. So the only way to get rid of neoliberal Tory policy is to be independent. So that's why I decided on independence, because I realized that getting rid of the Tories can only happen once we're independent. I'm not saying we wouldn't have some right-wing people in our parliament, because sure we would, but generally speaking, we'd be a more communitarian country that was more equal, the way some of the Scandinavian countries are, because I think that's where Scots' hearts are. You know, that's really our nature. So that's why I decided independence was the way. And then I didn't join the SNP till after the referendum when everybody else joined, but that was a mistake. It didn't work out well for me. So I'm hesitant about being too involved with political parties. But I totally believed in the SNP, and I believed in Nicola. I was a real fan. I think a lot of people went through this experience. I actually got my £100 back, because when she said we were having an independence referendum in the autumn of 2018 or the spring of 2019, I immediately got out my debit card, and I was on that ScotRef site, and £100 was a lot of money to me then, but I really wanted to do it for Scotland to be independent. So, you know, I was a real believer, but just as time goes on and on and on, you just start to see how fake the whole thing is and how much we're being lied to over and over again, and by Nicola Sturgeon. Nicola Sturgeon is the one that's punting all these lies at us. So, you know, they need our votes, they need one more mandate, and then when they get it, they immediately kick the can. So, like,
This is Baroness
have
Minion here. Sorry to interrupt you, I'm not really, because you're being nationalist types. This is Baroness Minion here. You can't in Scotland using the big line news. I need to stand back closer because my makeup isn't styling if I'm too far away from the screen. I just wanted to say, I haven't been doing here right, and you have been calling me all sorts of names. I've had Baroness Rape Clause, I've had Baroness Harry and Minion, he calls me. And now it's Baroness Link Sausage. Is that what you're calling me now? But Baroness Link to London? Is that what you're calling me? Anyway, I heard you were talking about you used to like Nicola Sturgeon. I've never liked Nicola Sturgeon. She's honest to God, I can tell you something. I don't like using nationalist, but I just wanted to kind of say it's all coming, the wheels are all coming off it, you know, in that SNP bunch, they're all getting caught out with the looks here. What's your take on that then, Denise?
Well, Baroness, I'm not sure what your career future is here. I don't know, like, was it just money? Is that the only reason you decided to sell out Scotland?
Dark money.
Money, yeah.
Money, aye.
It gets them all. You see, this is the problem. And you know, the SNP don't have their problems to seek with money either. Because they've got that 600,000 ring fence fund that has been woven somewhere. But nobody knows.
There's some Stonewall issues there. I think, Denise. I think there's some Stonewall issues there.
Yeah. Well, I think Peter Murrell is disappeared. We've not seen him for a while, so that's a bit wondering what he's up to. And actually, it was him and Nicholas Sturgeon's 11th wedding anniversary only the other day. Surprisingly, yeah. No anniversary gifts seem to be forthcoming between that couple.
Looks as if he's done a magic trick and done peef paff poff and poofed his off or something like that.
I didn't see any 11 years of joy and love with my darling tweets from either of them on their anniversary.
He's 11 years celebrate Super Bowl by any chance?
Iron.
Yeah,
iron or steel. I think it's iron.
I think they need Super Bowl. Anyway, back to you, John. I'll pass it back to you, John. I've got me important things to be doing, like talking to English folk. And
yeah, you can get down. You've got money. You've got a trough to be in. Get in the trough.
I need to go and bow for some folk. I need to go and bow for some folk, like some other folks boots down here. Right, anyway, John, back to you.
So, Denise, where do you see it going for people who want Scottish independence? If the SNP aren't the vehicle and they're the Scottish government, and they're only, like it or lump it, they're the only party with the political nous to get power in Scotland for the foreseeable, how do we achieve independence?
Yeah, well, I would think that the big problem is just what you said. If people believe that the SNP are the only vehicle for independence and the only way to get independence, then that's it. We're not getting independence, because it is entirely, totally clear that the SNP will not deliver independence in this parliamentary term. They have already kicked the can again till after the next general election. we could ask Mike Russell where we are on his 11-point plan. So I think we have to disabuse ourselves and face facts. The vehicle for independence is not the SNP. In fact, the SNP is the obstacle to independence. It's what's stopping us getting independence, because while they're assuming the mantle of the Independence Party, they are actually they're preventing it by a lot of ways, you know, saying we need a Section 30 because it's the gold standard, which is nonsense, but also that means the only way we can get independence is if Boris Johnson agrees. Why would he agree if we're going to win? Right? It's just stupid. But they've sort of made Scottish people through propaganda believe all this rubbish, and therefore we need the SNP to fail. I'm afraid that's what's needed. They have to fail, and that's the only way we're going to progress independence. And so it's a very hard message because it's a very long road for them to.
I don't know.
This is all damn Scotland's Bolton that you can't Scotland using the big line news. I work in conjunction with Baroness Baroness London Links, whatever her name is this week. Just wanted to say just now that you're talking about. Now, I think a penny just started with me there. Are you actually just trying to say that Nicola Sturgeon is just like one of us? She's like a Trojan horse, and she's working behind the scenes to.
Yeah. I think she is. I mean, I don't know if she was always a Trojan horse or she was always in the situation she is, but I don't really see how anyone can actually accidentally be so bad. You know, we've had 7 years where we've had Brexit and Boris Johnson, Tory governments, and facing a Tory government forever. Now, you think of September the 18th, 2014. If we had seen the future, we would have voted yes. There's no doubt about that. So Nicola Sturgeon has taken the most auspicious circumstances that she could possibly have been handed. She was handed a united yes movement, 120,000 members and 45% in the polls by Alex Salmond. And what she did, she got a Brexit vote and a Tory government that was ideal now. She'd put it in her manifesto. She has a mandate. She goes for independence. And she didn't. She squandered the whole thing, totally squandered. So how could she be as incompetent as to squander everything if it wasn't deliberate? So that's the way I think. I think that she is not in the slightest bit interested in independence, and whether she's deliberately doing it or just being fed lines by her advisors, and that's why she's making mistakes. And then you have to remember, of course, she did stitch up Alex Salmond into the blooming bargain. Just to, this is what she spent her time doing, stitching up Alex Salmond and trying to prevent Brexit that England voted for. That's what she spent her time doing. Instead of getting us our independence.
I don't know if you've seen, and I seen it on Twitter this week, and I think it was even the National covered it. It was another, and I think it was the Telegraph or the Independent that said there was a leaked email, and it was going to be unembargoed on Thursday. But the synopsis of this email was basically saying that Scotland doesn't need England's permission for a referendum, which most of us know anyway, is the fact. So it was really going to blow any cover out the water that's required. But that seems to have disappeared as well. The embargo never seemed to be lifted, and no one said anymore. I've not seen it anywhere in any media.
I think Joanna Cherry has talked about it.
Yeah, she mentioned it.
I think Joanna Cherry.
What's happened since the embargo? I don't know.
We're trying to hush up like kind of things, right? We're trying to keep using money for money here, right? I'm not wanting all that news to get out. Anyway, this is all damn Scotland's goal. So you can't Scotland news. I've got the report next to the day. She's Esther. Back to you, John.
How are you finding, what's your thoughts on the situation with COVID as, and it's Freedom Day tomorrow? I hope you've got your flags out.
Well, I was looking at the stats today, and England is on like 44,000 cases, and Scotland's on 1,700, which we should, by population share, be on 17,000. So that means England's more than twice, 2.5 times more infectious than we are, shall we say. And therefore, I'm not sure, like a year ago, these guys went down to the border and they had a protest at the border, and they said the border should be closed. And they were called all sorts. They were called racist by Hunza. And really, I think those guys were right. And maybe it's, again, we should think about closing the border. You know, because to get until England's cases are down. So I see Denmark has said anybody can go to Denmark. Only people from Wales can go to Denmark. No one else without isolation or whatever.
Yeah.
And therefore, why can't we say we don't have English people here? I don't mean that bad. People, residents in England, being up in Scotland, because of their COVID rates. And also it would make sense in order for us to get our cases down. I think they got called racist in that, and I think it's a difficult conversation to have. But it's something to think about, closing the border. But Nicola Sturgeon, she just follows on ahead with Boris. She really has. She hasn't done anything to protect Scotland. She's just followed what.
Oh, there, guys. Seem to have frozen a wee bit there. I've never had this before. So the 77th Brigade managed to hack into us and push us offline. So we're trying to get ourselves back online, because us Scottish folk are really clever. I don't know if you recognise Jacob Rees-Mogg dressed in a fancy dress outfit there on the screen. I'm going to share a wee video of his thoughts on concentration camps, where we'll try to resume the session.
People being taken off their farms and put into camps, but there was a war going on.
Hundreds of thousands of people died.
The South African concentration camps had exactly the same mortality rate as existed in Glasgow at the time. So they're not a good thing, but where else were people going to live
Did
when
you
there
just
was all that war?
justify the use of concentration camps?
No, I didn't. I'm talking about the Boer War had people put in camps for their protection.
Where the British invented the use of concentration camps.
But I'm afraid you're confusing concentration camps with Hitler's extermination camps.
I'm not saying they're the same thing. I'm saying that any concentration camp is de facto an awful, awful thing.
These were people who were interned for their safety. Now, that is not a good thing. I'm not in favour.
Hundreds of thousands of people died.
The death rate was exactly the same as in Glasgow. Death rates 100 years ago were considerably higher than they are now for all sorts of reasons, including...
Murder.
It was not systematic murder. That's simply wrong. I'm not advocating people being taken off their farms and put into camps, but there was a war going on, and people were being taken there so they could be fed, because the farmers were away fighting the Boer War. So this is one of the things where you've got to understand the history of what was going on. So this is one of the things where you've got to understand the history.
Crimes bill, and in that bill, it gives no.
Carry on.
It gives no protection. So the hate crimes bill, it gives no protection to women, but it does protect cross-dressing men, for example. So during the passage of the bill, there was amendments put forward that would have protected free speech to an extent, not much, but given some protection to women. But the amendments were initially accepted, but Humza Yousaf panicked, totally panicked. The trans activists within the SNP stormed out. Nicola Sturgeon, can you remember that video she did, the pleading video with the trans people to come back, the ones that stormed out?
Yes, can remember that video. It was very unusual.
women won't wish, 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 women won't wish. Women won't wish, women won't wish, women won't wish, women won't wish, women won't wish. Wish your tail, wish your tail, wish your tail, wish your tail. Help, 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 wish your tail. Wish your tail, wish your tail, wish your tail, wish your tail. Help, 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 wish your tail.
So other things that were covered after the 77 Brigade's interference was this clown monkey, who looks a wee bit like Jacob Rees-Mogg, if you ask me. We also spoke about women won't wish, women's rights, the ongoing torture of Marion Miller, and the treatment she's going through, which I find is absolutely astounding.
Yeah, so we have come up with a Women Won't Wish movement, which was inspired by a Women Won't Wish hashtag that some women on social media came up with, and everybody else joined in, and we started using this hashtag. And of course, wish means be quiet. And we've already done a lobby of Parliament dressed as handmaidens, which is to show how that women are being silenced. So what's happening is women's rights are under threat. Women's rights are exclusive in that they exclude men. And of course, if you allow anybody to identify as a woman, then it's no longer exclusive. So our problem is we don't have the right to single sex hospital wards, changing rooms, prisons. Women's sport is badly affected. So we were protesting against this law, this policy that the government, Nicola Sturgeon's government, wants to bring in. And they have also brought in a hate crimes bill, and the hate crimes bill is there to silence women. And again, we don't really know what we would be allowed to say that wouldn't be a hate crime. And so that's why we're being silenced. So our rights are taken away from us, and we're getting threatened by prison if we complain. And so that's the situation women in Scotland are in. And this is a situation Nicola Sturgeon has placed us in. She's placed us in a state of fear. We know our rights are being taken away, but she doesn't want us speaking out, because if we speak out and women learn what is happening, then they will object and they'll rise up against her. So she tries to silence us with her hate crimes bill, which doesn't give women any protection at all. But what it does do is it can criminalise us if we make an argument to retain women's sex-based rights. And in practice, all a person that complains about something a woman has said has to do is to get a police officer to take him seriously. And then the woman's life can be ruined. Not just the fact of her equipment seized, and then the stress of getting a lawyer, and then the press, you know, in the newspapers. All that can happen from a single complaint, even if ultimately that she's found innocent or there's no case to answer. So that's the situation Nicola Sturgeon has put women in Scotland. She's taken away our rights and threatening to jail us if we complain. I think that what she's done is disgraceful. She is a disgrace to women. We don't have an option but to fight this, because our foremothers fought for us. The only reason we have these single-sex provision is because other women fought for it, and they fought for us. So we have to, in turn, fight for future generations of women, and future generations have to have the same right to privacy and dignity and to single-sex provision as today's women has, as we've had. So it's totally unfair to take this away. And again, the gender ideological movement, they deal in stereotypes. It's like 1950s stereotype. And we are teaching teenagers that if they don't comply with a 1950s vision of womanhood, then they're a boy. And we're teaching boys, if they don't comply, they may be a girl, and medicalizing them, giving them puberty blockers, mastectomies, all sorts. And we're doing this to children. We're not teaching them that, you know, your body is beautiful and you're beautiful. If they say to us they're in the wrong body, we're like, oh, yeah, you probably are. It's a load of absolute nonsense, and it's totally, totally dangerous, and we can't let it stand. Luckily, we have some people on our side, like J.K. Rowling is on our side, and on a Tuesday, in protest about what's happened to Marion, we're going to have a event in Glasgow. It's called Tea in the Park. I'm thinking the T stands for, and some speeches. And we dress up as handmaidens to show our oppression. And so really, it is incredibly dangerous time. It's happening all over the world, but Nicola Sturgeon is letting it happen to Scottish women, and she is at the forefront of the trans ideology. For whatever reason, for whether she's a politician, so I doubt she believes in it, but that's where her political base is. She made her political base out of trans ideology people, and so now she owes them, I think. So she's definitely selling women out, and so we need to fight. We need to fight back. So we're going to have quite a few events where we're going to make sure that she doesn't get to do this in the darkness. This is going to be done in the light, and people are going to know what she's doing to women.
Amongst some other images. But I'll do that a minute, and this will be the end of Fleet Street Scotland Occupied for this evening, or Fleet Street Occupied Scotland for this evening, satirical satire. There's a couple of minutes video footage left still to go. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, press the bell for updates and notifications. If you don't already follow us on Twitter, please follow on Twitter. We'll follow back on Twitter at Fleet Street Oc1. Thanks very much for taking the time to watch our podcast, bloggy thing. Good night.
I'll come back. I'm the one who wanted to send home Johnny Depp's dog, so I've got no problem sending home someone. So I've got no problem sending home someone who wants to flout our laws. They want to flout our laws, then you pack your bongo and get out of the country.
Oh, you can't say cunt in Canada. Saying cunt's not very nice at all. No, you can't say cunt in Canada. So I asked the Sheilas what they called it. And they said muff, mut, minge, quim, twat, little flower, twinkle, tunnel of love. No, you can't say cunt in Canada unless you say it with a velvet tongue. And you can't say cunt in Canada. No, you can't say cunt in Canada. So I thought I'd better ask the guys. No, you can't say cunt in Canada. Why wasn't I surprised when they said gash, pussy, poontang, beef, curtain, burger, gateway to her guts? Gateway to her guts. How fucking romantic is that? Split whisker, beaver, long eye, front bum, growler, hairy lasso. No, you can't say cunt in Canada, because cunt's considered pretty fucking rude. And you can't say cunt in Canada. Do it again. No, you can't say cunt in Canada. So when you get to Montreal, if you're gonna say cunt in Canada, you gotta say it in French as well. So here goes Piliplut la Comte President Mitterrand, Pepe La Pew. No, you can't say cunt in Canada, because cunt's considered pretty fucking rude. And you can't say cunt in Canada. Yes!
This is Tweet Street Satirical Satire, broadcasting to you for unoccupied Scotland. Amplifying women's voices and saying women won't waste. This is Tweet Street Satirical Satire, broadcasting to you for unoccupied Scotland. Amplifying women's voices and saying women won't waste.